Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room. We're here for another installment of the well-renowned chat room where you guys in the comments, our loyal and lovely listeners, get to dictate where we go, what we talk about in today's show. I'm joined today by Owen and Jay. Owen, how you doing?
I'm very good, thanks, mate. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm feeling positive. Obviously, an international break, but I think this one's probably a little bit due because we know April's going to be a massive month, so I need a little bit of time to recharge for that. And Jay, how are you doing?
Very good, mate. Just gutted. We've got the international break. I can't stand them, but it is what it
No,
is.
no. Normally I'm in the same boat, but you know, every game is a cup final at the moment. You know, even against Watford, Norwich, you know, you can't take your eyes off it for a second. So, a little bit of downtime, I'm quite happy for, but I understand. So let's have a little chat about Nottingham Forest. We did come away with a 1-0 victory, so we do progress into the semi-finals of the FA Cup. Not exactly, again, you know, it feels like I've been saying this a lot recently, not exactly a vintage performance by the Reds, but at the end of the day, we've got over the line, and for me, that's the most important thing. Owen, just initially your takeaway from that game, full time. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, it's one of those games, really, wasn't it? Where kind of the main thing was just getting that win, going into the international break. We needed to kind of book our place into the semi-final against City, massive game. But yeah, I think on the whole, we didn't play too bad, considering kind of the rotation kind of was our B squad. So kind of good to get a rest for some of the lads. Same time, good few performances. Some maybe not so much really, but I'm sure we'll delve into that in a bit.
Yeah, there is one particular person I do want to mention who was subbed off about 3/4 of the way into the game. But Jay, your take on the performance in general?
Similar, mate. It was an ugly win, but obviously we took a lot of our first team players out the team. So you're in the next round, rested most of your key players. You've got to be happy, regardless.
Yeah, I mean the fact that Salah and Mane weren't even in the team, and I just couldn't believe the substitutes we were able to make. We brought on Luis Diaz, Thiago, Minamino, and one or two others. A massive flex, which is not something that we get to see in terms of substitutes. We haven't seen that for a while. But since January, we've just seemed to have a really stacked squad for the first time. We only signed one player. It's quite strange how it all aligns when you're not all carrying injuries. Good to see a couple of people getting in. Gary and Jen, I hope you're all doing well. Please do get involved and let us know if you've got any questions, anything you want us to ask. Jen, I know what you're going to say, and no, we don't have any Salah contract news just yet. Please don't ask me because we just don't have anything. Speaking of players who perhaps didn't have the best performance, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain brought off somewhat. I can't remember exactly when he was brought off, but it was when those 4 substitutions were made. He seemed quite distressed coming off. Owen, I think on reflection, I feel like he's quite a self-aware guy, and I feel like on reflection, he'll know that he didn't perform very well. You know, it was a pretty bad performance, wasn't it, Owen? Considering the opportunity that he maybe had to try and assert himself going into this April sort of showdown.
Yeah, at this point, I can't lie. I do feel a bit sorry for him, to be honest. He's just kind of a bit out of his depth. I think performances like that we've seen often from him, which kind of says it all. Performances where he doesn't necessarily do a lot wrong, just doesn't do much at all. I think Keita, another player yesterday, I didn't think was brilliant. But kind of it shows the opposite ways that they've gone in their career, where Keita's kind of the last 6 months kind of taking his opportunity, where Ox has kind of not shown what he's capable of when he's played. And I think I heard him say when he was taken off that I only played 1 game in the last how many, he said, but it doesn't matter because there's a reason why he hasn't been playing, is because he's not good enough. And if you're good enough, you will get game time under Klopp, and we've seen that with other players. So I just think now it's time to move him on, to be honest.
Hi, Matthias. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, I don't know about you, Jay, but with Ox, I've always tried to give him the benefit of the doubt as saying that he's one of those players who needs consistent game time to get up to where he can be. whereas the likes of a Thiago can just come in from an injury and just almost instantly be at his best. We can't carry people waiting for them to get up to their best. Like you need to be able to come in and do a job essentially, and surely Ox didn't do that yesterday.
No, I love Ox as a person, but not as a footballer. I think his time's been up a lot longer than this season, mate. Every time he plays or he comes on, I just find myself screaming at him because he just makes poor decisions. And I think a lot of it is he probably tries too hard because he knows he's only getting these cameo appearances. He's trying to do something special that he wouldn't normally do. He's not playing his natural game because he's trying to impress. And I just think it's at the point now it's better for everyone if he moves on, because I don't think he's even got much of a footballing brain the way we play, to be honest.
Mm. And speaking of people who maybe didn't perform anywhere near their best, but again, consistently in amongst the goals, and I'll stay with you, Jay, on this one. Diogo Jota getting the winning goal for us, but I don't know about you, but I thought apart from that, he was bang average, and that's sort of become his staple, I feel like. He's almost got that Divock Origi energy about him where he can completely ghost a game, put in a subpar performance, and still come up with the goods. And at that point, it becomes really hard to actually talk about dropping him.
Yeah, since he had that little knock, I wouldn't say he's had a game where he's been outstanding. I think prior to his injury, there was a couple of games where he was kind of your go-to be honest. He was creative and stuff. He does miss a chance, Jota. But the thing is, he'll get himself in positions where he'll have 5 or 6 chances, and 9 times out of 10 he'll bang one in. So I'm not worried about his performances. But I do know what you mean. He's not having the influence on the game that he has done earlier in the season. I agree.
Whereas, a Firmino, I think whenever he's come on in the last few weeks, he's shown what Jota can't do necessarily off the ball in terms of creating those overloads in the middle of the park and creating the additional space for Mane and Salah, although Jota can do that at times. So, Hamza, I've seen your question. Thank you very, very much for getting involved. If you are new, please do consider subscribing. I am not 100% sure about Carlos Sola, and I don't know if Owen or Jay happen to be experts on Valencia players, so I don't want to give you a crappy answer. What I will tell you is we will be doing a transfer central tomorrow at 8 o'clock, so if you want us to give thoughts on any players, list them now, and I'll make a note of them, and I'll make sure that they get covered in tomorrow's video. I don't want to give you a bad answer. So this is interesting. We've got an opinion from Jen, and I was hoping Bojack wouldn't be here because it's about to go off now. For anyone who doesn't know, Bojack is a massive, massive hater of Joe Gomez. Cannot stand him. He even abandons this channel's watch-alongs when he finds out Joe Gomez is starting. Jen has said, Gomez was brilliant and showed his skills, and special mention to Alisson. What a goalkeeper. Owen, of course, Nico Williams has gone out on loan. We have seen Joe Gomez ever so slightly starting to creep back into the squad, albeit at right back, not his natural position. How do you think he did yesterday?
If I'm being 100% honest, I didn't think he was brilliant. I've seen a lot of people going around saying how good he was. I guess he kind of did all the basics, but at the same time, he's not Trent, is he? No fullback in world football really is Trent Alexander-Arnold, and I don't think we can use that against Joe Gomez.
Yeah, you don't expect that when you see him a right back. Yeah,
but at the same time, I thought his crossing was very poor. And overall, I'd give him probably 6.5 out of 10. I thought he was just average, to be honest. But considering his lack of game time, I guess he did come in and do a job. So got to give him praise for that.
Yeah, so considering his lack of game time and considering his massive injury, Jay, how much does that play into how you would rate a Joe Gomez performance at right back? With his limited game time.
Well, massively, mate. Because for a start, he's not a right back. Even his body type and the way he moves, he's not suited for a right back. He's not gonna start whipping balls in the way Trent does. If you play Thiago right wing or left wing, or Henderson right wing, left wing, you're not going to get a winger's performance because that's not their position. Bear in mind, Gomez barely plays a game, so I think he's done that well, to be honest, to say how long he'd been out. I don't like him at right back because he's blatantly a centre half, but as a makeshift, I think he's done well.
Bojack already very keen to get his points across in the comments. Talking about the goal that we almost conceded just before Jota put it in. Is saying it was comical. All the Gomez apologists, please watch the lead up to the Forest chance. His defending and decision making was comical. He could have stopped the Forest player from shooting, and he's given him a rating of 2 out of 10. Charlie, and unlikely. Go on, Owen.
That was true. I think for that chance, he was out of position and got caught out. So, kind of shows kind of his kind of, I don't know how to put it really, kind of the weakness he has when playing at right back.
But we talk about right backs getting caught out of positions essentially for being too far forward at times. I mean, Trent does fall into that category, surely, Jay. But on the other end, he's got his amazing playmaking abilities to counter that, I guess. Do you think it's a bit harsh, or
which shot do you mean, Gomez?
The Gomez criticism.
Yeah, I do, to be honest, mate. Like I say, he must have featured in 10 games this season after a year's injury, and them games are very sporadic. It's not as if it's 1 or 2, 3 games consecutively. He'll play one, then not be seen for 7. It's very hard. You're talking about Oxlade-Chamberlain getting a rhythm of games. It's no different for Gomez, and he's in a position where one mistake can lead to a goal. So it'll probably be highlighted more than a midfielder. Joe Gomez is a top centre half, in my opinion, mate. Before his injury, he was an absolute animal next to Van Dijk. So I'm not one of them who's going to jump on his back. That I hope he can get back to what he was, albeit it might be a bit of a challenge to do.
Yeah, in his defence, it was a very end-to-end game, so can't really blame him too much coming in.
I'm keen to, because whenever Bojack's here, it always gets derailed into a Joe Gomez debate, and I'm keen for that not to happen on this occasion, Bojack. It'd be interesting to hear a Bojack opinion that's not about Joe Gomez. That would be quite cool. If we can try and get that in this video. So briefly moving on, we can always come back to it if people have more questions or thoughts about that game. But a player who's for a while was quite heavily linked with Liverpool, but maybe not as much in recent years. Paulo Dybala, he's now 28 or 29. He has apparently, according to reports, agreed not to re-sign with Juventus. So a long-term stay at the club looks like it's coming to an end. So that means that at the end of this season, he could leave on a free. Owen, I don't know how much you've watched Dybala, how much you watched that league or in the Champions League. I know he was a very hyped up player in the past, but for me, it feels like he's fallen flat a little bit, hasn't developed to the world-class player that we thought he could be. Is that someone you take on a free, but is that someone you'd look to, or do you think we could do better?
It feels like a very Manchester United signing, I can't lie. Kind of a player who's kind of been there, done it, past his prime, and now just kind of trying to relive it. I wouldn't go for it personally because he's going to want crazy wages, and I think it will cause problems within the dressing room. And we've done well to avoid those sort of players in the past. So yeah, I'd stay clear of that one. But at the end of the day, from what I've seen of him, he's a good player. But has he really done it recently? I really haven't seen that much of him at all recently, so can't really comment on that.
Yeah. Jay, I mean, Serie A, obviously a different league to the Premier League in terms of style of football, a little bit slower, a bit at times more physical. If he's not lighting that on fire or looks like he's got potential to go up a level, as I said, approaching his 30s essentially, that's quite far out of the kind of profile that we've been known to go for in the past few years, isn't it?
Yeah, you've both pretty much hit the nail on the head. I used to love Dybala. I thought he'd be a top player. And I think when they signed Ronaldo, they were going to let him go that year. And he had a bit of a standout season that season. But it was probably because, obviously, he had Ronaldo there, so he had to. There's no way I'd go for him, mate. 29, his wages are going to be astronomical. And I've got to be honest, I don't think he'd last 5 minutes in the Premier League anyway. Not a very physical player. He's not the quickest. And he's quite small. So, no, not for me, mate. There's far better options out there, even to pay a little bit of money.
Yeah, and staying with you again, like, even if we had an interest in him, where would he fit into our style of play? I mean, for me, he's always appeared to be a number 10, so I guess he could come into that category of being a false 9 potentially, but we seem quite stacked in that position. So again, not really a priority, is it?
No, if we did have him, that is where I play him, in the false 9 role. But I don't think he's got the engine to play that role the way Jota or Firmino does, and I don't really think he's got the intelligence, to be honest, mate. There's very few who can play the false 9 like Firmino in terms of creating space for others and making intelligent runs. So he's a no-go for me, but if he was, you would play him in the Firmino role, the false 9.
Yeah. Thank you to everybody who's tuning in and watching. Please do make sure that you like this video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Remember, this is the chat room. This is all about you, the listeners. So if you've got any opinions you'd like to share, any questions you'd like us to have a go at answering, can't guarantee it'll be a good answer, but we'll try our best. Please do leave them in the live comments. Selection, thank you for getting involved. On Dybala says, no, Dybala is still a great player. I wouldn't go after him, especially when our average age is 28. Didn't know that. Long-term investment is the priority. And Owen, that's something that we've already seen, something that we've talked about on this channel as well, sort of that phase 2 of the Klopp era. You know, the age of Salah, Mane, Firmino is unfortunately starting to come to an end. We may even see one of them depart this summer. Who knows? We've invested in the likes of Diaz, Jota, who are slightly younger. We've got Elliott and Jones coming through. So really anybody who's in that age range is not someone that we're looking at, surely, is it?
No, not at all. I think kind of where we saw the links with Fabio Carvalho, that's the sort of player we want to be targeting, really. Kind of, I know he's Championship, but a player of that sort of age, kind of an upcoming talent in Europe. Yeah, I think a lot of players will leave in the summer coming. I think there needs to be some kind of clear out. I've said it before, but I do actually mean it in terms of kind of getting rid of players 28, 29, kind of come to the end of their careers and kind of making a bit of money out of it before it's too late. I think that is quite important, especially when we know how FSG invest. They very kind of sell to buy and kind of a limited budget. So I think we need to kind of keep that in mind. But yeah, I think kind of just stay with what we've got in terms of that sense. Kind of Salah, Mane, who knows if they'll still go. So we don't want to kind of add to that more problems.
Yeah, and HDS 96 on that says Juventus are hiding his talent. I think he's world class in poor form disguised. The perfect Firmino replacement for me. But I'll put that back to you, HDS, and do feel free to answer in the live chat. You know, he, as we've said, he is either 28 or 29, so he's not that far behind either of any of the front three. So is he really a replacement, or is he just another option? And you'd imagine the sort of salary he'd be looking for is his final big contract, you could even say, if he were to move now. That would, by all intents and purposes, be up there with a Salah, trying to break that structure we've already got in place. On that, something I want to put to you guys, and it's something I've been thinking about quite a lot since January. FSG, a very big topic, and the whole Salah contract situation. So, Jen, if you're watching, we'll give you a little bit of opinion on Salah's contract. Where do you two? I'll start with you, Owen. Where do you stand on the Salah stuff? Because I see two very good points from either side. I see FSG with a solid structure in place, which has brought us multiple trophies, got us some fantastic players who are, you know, at a very good level, but are ready to jump to world-class level. And if you then suddenly pay a player 2-3 times the highest amount and go into ridiculous sums like what Salah's asking for, you're asking for trouble. And then when you try to renegotiate with your Van Dijks, your Alexander-Arnolds, your Robertsons, suddenly they all want much higher contracts as well. On the other side, though, you've got Salah, who's looking at Mbappe's, Benzema's, Lewandowski's, seeing them get paid 300, 400,000 pounds a week. And although that's ridiculous money, and we'd be happy with a quarter of that a week, like no problem whatsoever, it's almost the principle of why are they getting it? Why am I not allowed to have it? What's so different about me when I'm doing these spectacular numbers? So that's my thoughts on it, Owen. But do you fall more on one particular side? Do you think FSG just need to get their wallet out, or do you think Salah's being unreasonable?
Well, actually, my views regarding FSG have actually changed over these last few months. Before I kind of really wanted them out, but now I'm kind of more neutral sided, kind of in the middle. And actually, on this one, I actually take side with FSG. I think Salah, it's down to whether he loves the club or whether he wants money. And if he loves the club as much as he kind of says he does, then he'll sign that contract. Yeah, he should get a pay rise for sure. From what he's done for the club is unbelievable. And he's a club legend, and I absolutely love Salah. Don't get me wrong. But I think here you need to protect the club, and it will always be the club over any player. And I think that's where we should stand on it.
Yeah. And what about you, Jay? Which side do you take, or are you more in the middle?
No, I'm in a similar position to Owen, to be honest. Initially, I was very at FSG joking, letting it go on this long, everything he's done this season. I don't think we'd have got Champions League if we didn't have him last season, because his goals were vital. But then I've looked at it from FSG's point of view, and I think what FSG must be saying is, well, where are you going? Because Real Madrid want Mbappe, they're not going to get both. Barcelona are meant to want Haaland, they can't afford him. The only team realistically that can afford Salah is either a Premier League team or PSG. So do you want to go and play in France, and do you want to play for the direct rival? Now, the other thing for me is, he keeps saying about, I want to play for Liverpool, I want to play for Liverpool. Then play for Liverpool. Yeah, everyone keeps blaming his agent for wanting more money. At the end of the day, Mo Salah signs the contract, not his agent. If he really, really wants to stay, he will stay. He'll tell his agent to shut up, and he'll sign the contract. What you've got to remember is, Salah's already paid handsomely. There's no way he hasn't been offered a better deal. It might not be 500, 600 grand a week, but it's going to be a good deal. It's not like he's been offered buttons. He'll have been offered a substantial contract, and he's already on one. So I've done full circle, to be honest. I was very much, it's FSG's fault, but looking at it, if you want to play for Liverpool, play for Liverpool. Tell your agent to shut up and sign your deal. It's a no-brainer for me. It's all in Salah's court.
HGS96 says, do we actually know how much Salah wants, and how much did FSG offer him? So I don't believe we do. I think FSG and Liverpool in recent years have always done quite a good job at keeping money, how much is on the table, under wraps. So I think that's a bit of a mystery and up to us. But you can imagine what Salah's asking for necessarily. But hey, it might all just be at the end of the day. I know agents are quite easy to go in on, and the likes of Mino Raiola, those super agents, can't stand them. They are leeches to society.
Yeah.
But in general, at the end of the day, they are just trying to get the best deal that they can get. So I think you can have both living in harmony, where Salah absolutely wants to play for this club, but he is going to get as much money out of this as he can. And, I kind of think in a way he has the right to do that. But at the same time, I don't blame the club for not falling for it. And they're going to try and get it as low as possible. At the end of the day, it's a negotiation. But for us as fans, it's obviously a very emotional thing. And we do tend to see it more black and white of, well, if you want to stay, sign the contract, otherwise get out. But, things are a little bit more blurred than that. Matthias not happy with the agent. It's not Salah wanting more, it's his agent who's being a prick. Well said. Gary Richards says FSG will not budge on the money. Maybe they won't, but I'm sure there'll be a little bit of give and take. That's how negotiations work. Bojack said, don't forget the club are also looking at losses of £100 million plus over the past 12 to 18 months due to COVID / a lack of crowds, etc. And whilst we're speaking of PSG, Owen, it feels like years ago that well, I wasn't on here, but maybe you were, talking about the Super League. You know, our owners who, by the sounds of it, all three of us have kind of shifted a little bit towards liking them a bit more in their handling of the club. But, you know, not too long ago, they were looking to get us into the European Super League. Does that come into mind when you're thinking about them, or is that very much a thing of the past now?
Yeah, it does come into mind now. I think it left a dent on their legacy at Liverpool. Whatever they do, that will always be there. But I don't think you can forget that all of the top six owners try to do it. All the biggest clubs in Europe try to do it. So it's not like it's necessarily just our owners. And look, don't get me wrong, our owners are very far from perfect. That they've done kind of tried to trademark the Liverpool name. They've cost £77 for tickets. They've done a lot wrong, don't get me wrong, but I just think that part of me says that what they've done to the club and how they've kind of, obviously with the help of Klopp, have taken us to winning Premier League, Champions League, and contemplating kind of success every single season as fans. We expect it now, and that's the way Liverpool should always be. We should always be challenging on all fronts, and FSG are allowing us to do that at the minute. So I don't really get why we should be FSG out. Don't get me wrong, I've been very FSG out in the past, but at this stage, we're doing so well. It's like it seems a bit stupid to want those owners out.
And Jay, following off the back of that, you know, not just the Salah stuff, but with the Super League in mind, Gary says it will rear its head again. You know, do you see that happening? Is there more to come from that?
100%, mate. I think a lot of the FSG out crowd have gone quiet purely on the signing of Luis Diaz. Luis Diaz doesn't sign in January. Every single FSG out there is still FSG out, and probably even more so with the Salah contract impasse. If Luis Diaz doesn't sign, all the FSG out people are still FSG out. I don't care what anyone says. When I'm taking sides with FSG, by the way, it's purely on this situation, the Salah contract. I don't think FSG are good owners. Not good owners, that's a bit strong. I don't think the great owners. They've made many mistakes. Ticket prices, the hospitality, the Super League, it goes on and on. And to be honest, I think we're only where we are on Klopp. If we don't have Klopp, if we've got another manager, mate, we haven't done any of the stuff that we've been doing, winning titles, competing for Champions Leagues. They haven't backed him massively. He sold 2 players, made loads of money, and then we signed Van Dijk and Alisson on the back of it. Without Klopp, mate, we'd be where Arsenal have been for the last couple of years, in my opinion, because if Klopp had been backed the way other managers have been, the likes of United, City, even Everton have spent more than us. We probably win the league a lot more under Klopp if he had that type of money to spend, but he hasn't, and I think he's worked miracles. So I agree with FSG in the Salah contract situation, but I'm still not one of them. Oh, FSG are great people, no chance.
No, yeah. I'm not. I'm not in love with them. I just I think they've been very sensible in what they've done, and I say apart from, it's a massive thing, the European Super League. Sorry, I keep on stuttering. I think their handling, when you then look at, you know, Arsenal of the last 5-10 years, you look at Manchester United now, the state they're in with their owners. Because the big thing with like Manchester United, and I will compare with them, is what Owen said earlier about like a Manchester United signing with the likes of Dybala.
Yeah.
Like, they'll go out and spend massive money, and that makes you think like, well, they are backing their manager. You can't use that as an excuse. But then you actually like dig down into who they're buying as a collective. What does it create? Like Cristiano Ronaldo coming out of nowhere doesn't fit into really what they were sort of going for under Ollie. Not that they were going for much. So then you come and look at us, and you look at the whole Moneyball thing, which is really interesting. And there's some good articles about it from like Sam Maguire and stuff. I just think they've been very clever. I think they do deserve credit for our business in the transfer market, what they've implemented, because I don't as much as Klopp obviously agrees and signs off on whatever player we go for, I don't think he is the one sending scouts out left, right, and centre. I don't think he necessarily spotted Jota. I think when you look at Jota's performances at Wolves, he fitted into a model that FSG have been using that spotted the likes of Mane, the likes of Salah, the likes of Jota. When you think back to the clubs they were at previously, they were all kind of at similar levels. They looked like they looked like they weren't necessarily going places, but they maybe had that little bit extra. And then, of course, Klopp was able to work his magic once we got hold of them. So it's interesting, but we can keep talking about that. Bojack says, why would anybody want FSG out? Their ownership has been the most successful since 1990. Owen, he's technically right. That is a fact. But as Jay said, how much of that do you attribute to Klopp?
Yeah, it's a huge part. I think you mentioned there about kind of how we bring players in. I think Michael Edwards deserves a massive round of applause for what we've done, because without him, I don't think we would have spotted half of the players that we've signed under FSG. So I think that's massive. But I think when you go back to United and Ronaldo and Dybala, I don't want to bring this in, but it's more to do with like the manager side of it and kind of the recruitment rather than the spending. Because I don't see a problem with spending, but I see a problem with how the money's spent. And I think with Liverpool, that's what we've done really well, is how we've spent the money. We haven't wasted hardly any money. And I think, yeah, we've been very effective and efficient. So I think that's a very important way to do that, though, building a football club, building it back up. And look, I'm quite young. I wasn't there for like the Hicks and Gillette days. So I can't really pretend and sit here like, oh, I know it all. But I think we have to be quite thankful for what we do have and how, look, we're talking about a quadruple and it's March. Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good perspective. Look, I mean, I don't think it's easy when someone compliments FSG to then say, oh, well, you're a FSG lover. You think they're the best thing that's ever happened to this club. But as Jay said, you can compliment them and respect them for certain decisions and tear them a new one for other decisions, essentially. Who was it? I think it was Sam. Yeah, Sam asking about a potential Liverpool transfer. So I've taken that name down, Sam. If you're still here, you might not be here, but we'll talk about it in the Transfer Central episode tomorrow. So I just want to make sure that we do give you guys proper responses. Carter, with a very potentially unpopular opinion, says, I would move Salah and Mane on. There are plenty of forwards that can make a step up. For example, Rafinha, Saka, Gnabry, or Marcus Edwards. The money could even let us push for a Declan Rice. Jay, sort of turned your nose up at that one. I can understand why, but just talk us through your thoughts on that one.
I mean, you're comparing someone with Salah's numbers to Rafinha, who plays for Leeds. No disrespect to Leeds, but them levels are different, mate. Like, scoring consecutively in the Champions League and scoring 1 in every 4 or 5 games for Leeds, they're different levels. Edwards is nowhere near the level, so I'm very surprised he mentions him. And I think Declan Rice is one of the most overhyped players I've ever seen in my life, ever. And I'm not exaggerating, I mean ever.
Gary said, sorry, I'll come back to that point, but just an interesting one. Gary says Liverpool should have signed Mbappe when they had the chance. So bearing in mind, Owen, the players that we have gone after in recent years, we've never gone for a ready-made superstar footballer. And with the whole Salah contract situation, bearing in mind we don't want to give Salah 300-400 grand a month, I don't see us ever going for the likes of a Jude Bellingham, an Erling Haaland, and Mbappe. I never, ever see us going for any of them, and I think we should never bother talking about it. What about you? Do you agree? Please tell me you agree.
Yeah, I do agree to some extent, but when you were reading that out then, that comment, what made me think of was when he was at Monaco, and we were kind of in for him then. I think even Klopp kind of spoke to his dad or something. It was quite serious. But I think we tried all we could, but his heart was set on PSG. And then kind of up until kind of the last 12 months, I think he's been settled at PSG. And we've had to pay absolutely enormous money to have taken him away from there. So I don't think it was ever really on for us, considering how much we do spend, I just don't think there was ever going to be that opportunity. But going back to kind of would we ever buy a Haaland or an Mbappe? I don't think we would, to be honest with you. I really don't think we would buy a player for over 100 million, not with FSG at least. I just can't see when there's alternatives, kind of like the Jota or Diaz mold available. It seems unnecessary. It's like, why would we do that? But who knows what changes. At the end of the day, we bought Van Dijk for 75 million, and that's nearly, well, it's 4 years ago now. So who knows what will happen in time.
Thank you for all the comments still coming in. I will get through to them, but I just want to get Jay's take on that. So, you know, let's assume that we do never ever go for a superstar footballer like an Mbappe, like a Bellingham. Would you be upset about that if someone told you that those kinds of deals will never happen, bearing in mind what we've done recently?
No, I think I've been a Liverpool fan long enough to know that's not the way we operate. And when you look at the success we've had in getting the likes of Salah, Mane, Diaz, Firmino, I think they were all in the 30 millions. You know, when you compare that to some of the prices people are signing people for, it's insane. We sold Solanke, Jordan Ive for 15 mil. It's like 2 Jordan Ives to get a Salah. So when you put perspective like that, don't get me wrong, because of the club we are, and I think the pull of Klopp and how good we've been in Europe and in the league the last few years, it would be nice for us to be able to be in the same league as Barca and Real Madrid, going for players like Mbappe and Haaland. I'm not one of them who wants £300 million players a season, but it would be nice to be in a position where if Klopp said, look, go all out, I want Mbappe, or go all out, I want Haaland, that we'd be in a position to at least try it. That'd be nice, but again, I'm not bothered if we don't, because it's work without it.
Yeah. Craig K, thank you for getting involved. Thank you to everybody who's still watching and commenting. Please do like this video and also subscribe to the channel if you are new. You'll love it. It's a great place to be. Craig says, I would take Martinelli. So Martinelli is a player that Klopp, every time we've played Arsenal, I feel like Klopp has made almost a purposeful choice to talk about him in his post-match interviews. Is there something there, Owen? Like, I don't see it myself. I don't, not as in his ability, but in terms of ever coming to Liverpool, I just find the idea of Premier League rivals exchanging players quite bizarre. But do you think there could be something there in a year's time or two?
No, I think kind of we've always.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, show over. No, but I think as a Liverpool fan, we've always kind of had our best players taken away from us from the likes of Chelsea or kind of Arsenal, or at least going back 15 years ago. So kind of just to be in that position now where we can look at other Premier League players, I think. But nowadays it's too competitive, I think, at the top, and teams just aren't going to want to sell to us because they know that we are real competition and we are a threat to not just the Premier League, the Champions League, and all the domestic competitions as well.
Yeah, and Gary Richards, talking about Martinelli, says he had Trent on toast in that game against Arsenal. You know, I did think that whilst we were doing the watch along in the first half, especially, I thought, blimey, he is slightly embarrassing Trent here. But then Klopp made a very big point, Jay, of coming out and defending him and saying anyone who thinks Trent can't defend now, I'm going to knock him down. He threatened violence over it. You know, do you share that? Not just in general, because I think we all agree he can defend to an extent, but in terms of the performance against Martinelli, did I miss something there?
No, I was surprised by what Klopp said, because I actually think earlier in the season when we played them, Martinelli gave him nightmares as well. It was one of the first things I thought about playing the game, was Martinelli up against Trent. I think where Klopp's coming from is, as good as Martinelli was, he didn't actually create anything on the back of going past. He might have dribbled past him 3 or 4 times, but if you don't get your cross in, or you don't get an assist or a goal, what's the point? I get it.
I mean, Joe Gomez did that against Nottingham Forest, but his crosses always just went straight to the keeper.
Exactly. So I think he gave him a torrid time in terms of dribbling, but it did never amount to anything or lead to anything. So I'm thinking that's where he came from. Because in terms of one-on-one, I'm not sure if Trent made a tackle on him, to be honest. I think he might have made one. And that was when we were 2-0 up toward the end.
Kris says Jordan Ibe is far clear of Salah. Jen says Salah has a contract on the table, but if he loves Liverpool, he signs. If not, he goes. We cannot be held to ransom with salary and contracts. But at the end of the day, just to sort of wrap that one up, we'll find out by the end of the season. If he signs now and he's got a bit of an added bonus, then we'll take it. And he's with us for the rest of his good years, essentially. But, it's all well and good sort of forming opinions now, but I think we've just got to kind of let that sit until we actually know exactly what's going on with that one. Keep the thoughts and opinions coming in, guys. It's a good stream so far. We'll keep going for a little bit longer. Jamie Rennie, thank you for getting involved, says we make Haalands, not buy them. I'm okay with that, but could it be done without Klopp? Owen, the floor is yours.
It's a hard one. It really is, because I think the difference between Liverpool and a lot of other clubs is that we buy players in and we develop them. We don't just kind of bring them in and go, right, you're the big player, come on, show us what you've got, and just kind of leave them up to dry. We kind of help develop them. That's part of what Klopp does into making them superstars. So, yeah, I do agree with that we kind of want to make our own player. And I think Klopp probably would not be embarrassed, but I feel like he would kind of be giving in, kind of getting a player like that. Like Haaland, because he kind of wants to develop these players instead of just kind of cheating at it. We've all criticised Man City and the other teams kind of for buying their way out. So I don't really want us to do that either.
Yeah, I think the best example of that was, I don't know the full story with Nathan Ake when Man City signed him, but to me it seemed like they signed him to be like their next centre back. He played a couple of games, wasn't quite what they thought he'd be, and then they went out and spent big on a Ruben Diaz. And I just thought, well, when would we ever have the chance to do that, or would Klopp even want to do that? I feel like he would stick it out no matter how bad the player was. Craig again follows up and says, who follows Klopp, Gerrard or Pep Linders? Well, on that, and sort of the second part of his original question, talking about could we continue doing this without a Klopp? Jay, I feel like with Klopp, he's one of those managers up with the likes of a Pep Guardiola, a Tuchel, who doesn't just come in and manage, like a bloody Alan Pardew or whatever. Come in, manage, get sacks, and that's the end of it. He comes in and he revolutionizes, might be too strong, but he puts his own format in. He gets a crack team around him, and he's almost looking to protect his legacy once he's gone. So for me, I feel like we could go on and be very successful without him once we're ready. Do you share that, or do you think we're in trouble when he goes?
It's dependent, mate, because when we're talking about United signing players, they don't sign players for their coach. They're signing players for the club. Every signing Liverpool make is to fit into Klopp's philosophy of playing footy. That's why Robbo couldn't get a game for 3-4 months. Fabinho didn't come straight into the side. That's because they're learning how to play the way Klopp wants to play. So our recruitment, a massive part of it is to fit into the Klopp system and the Klopp way of playing. So for that to continue, I think you'd have to have... I want Pep Linders to be the next manager after Klopp, because he's already been round it. He knows what we're about. Every time he speaks as well, by the way, he's class. I think he's a class person, the way he conducts himself. And you don't sign managers on sentiment. We've seen Frank Lampard, Solskjaer went great. So I don't want Gerrard anywhere near Liverpool until he's done something that warrants getting the Liverpool job. At the end of the day, when Klopp leaves, the Liverpool job is one of the biggest jobs you're ever going to get. Only the big managers who've done things or warrant that job should be in consideration. There should be no sentiment in it whatsoever. And the only reason I say Pep Linders is because he's been there for years now. He knows everything. He knows the identity of the club, the way we play. And I just feel like it'd be similar to Shankly Paisley, just carrying it on from picking up where you left off type of thing. So yeah, it's dangerous that you've got to get the next one right, because the big boots to fill, aren't they, basically?
Yeah, and HDS 96 sort of builds off that and makes a good point. It says Klopp's made such an impact to Liverpool, maybe as much as a Cruyff and a Guardiola made on Barcelona. This philosophy will stay in. And that's kind of what I was alluding to, because it's not just the first team creating that vision, but it's throughout the whole club. It's right the way down from the academy, the under-17s, the under-21s through to the first team. That's why when you see a Tyler Morton come in, you see an Owen Beck, a Conor Bradley, they might not be generational talents, and not everybody who plays for Liverpool will be a generational talent, but you see them come in and they look comfortable, and that's because that they are being drilled on what Klopp wants them to do from the very beginning, from as soon as they come into the club, whatever level that is at. And on Pep Lijnders, I think the bounce back, or the opposite side to that, is a lot of people use his very short stint in Holland against him for, who was it, NEC, Nijmegen, Owen. You know, is that always a fair way to view a manager off of one job at a fairly below average side? Because we always say, could a Guardiola do it at West Brom? Could a Klopp do it at Stoke? Who knows? Is that really a good way to judge it? And do you think, is Lijnders your man potentially?
Yeah, I want Lijnders at Liverpool after Klopp goes. I've actually got a pretty mad theory, actually, that I think when Klopp leaves, I think Lijnders will take over for a year, and I think Klopp won't return. I think he will return.
I've seen that a lot. Everyone reckons he's going to take a year's holiday and then come back.
Yeah, sorry.
Come on.
I hope he's alive.
I do believe that. I do, because he said he promised his family he's going to take a break, and then I think at the end of the day, how old is he? 55. He's still got a few years left to carry on his reign at Liverpool. But I think going back to Pep Lijnders, I think you can't really judge him off what he's done elsewhere, because he's been at Liverpool now for so long, and no doubt he's learned from his spell in Holland. He's learned from Klopp even more. He's learned more about the Premier League, learned more about the club. So I think he's probably the perfect man to take charge.
Yeah. Jamie Rennie says sentiment can be some of the worst blunders in football. And funnily enough, I feel like that might be one of FSG's strengths. Agreeing to come in to go into a Super League, I think that shows that they don't have too much sentiment in them, which in this scenario actually works out quite well. So I think that they will make the right decision. And I think this is, look, we're talking about a few years down the line and we need to focus on the here and now and enjoy it. But whilst we are on this topic, when Klopp leaves in a couple of years, potentially, I think a lot of people wonder if it's going to go the same way as when Kenny left, and, things might start to go downhill. But I've just got a really good feeling that the club has revolutionized itself. We have put ourselves in a much more stronger position with a solid foundation. And I just think that Klopp isn't the end. Klopp leaving isn't the end of what this Liverpool team can do necessarily. But we'll see. We will find that out eventually, of course. Rob GTI says, is Gerrard ready for the Liverpool job? I think he still has time to prove himself. I think Jay kind of answered that question. And Craig says, Roy Hodgson for a year, ? No, I won't even grace that.
Don't even joke.
I won't even grace that one with a proper answer. Look, I think we've done a good show, a good account of ourselves here. We'll look to call it a day. Thank you to everybody who's gotten involved in this episode of the chat room. It's really great to just spend some time with our lovely listeners and just get your thoughts and opinions and answer some of your questions. Everybody who commented a player that we're interested in or who you want us to sign, I have noted it down, and I'll make sure that we address it in the next episode of the Transfer Central, which I think will be tomorrow. Owen, thank you very much for joining me. Jay, same goes for you as well. Yes,
don't forget to use TR 2020 at manscaped.com in the final order for 20% off.
Thank you. Yes, 20% off and free shipping with the code TR 2020. Has anybody used it yet? I'm keen to see if anyone's bought anything. I know Jen's going on about it a lot. I'm sure she's got something. Thank you, Matthias. Speak to you in the next video. I think we might have a watch along for the two legs of the Senegal-Egypt World Cup qualifier. I think it's on Friday and Tuesday, so I might try and watch those, and we can have a look at what the boys are up to and see who's going to the World Cup or not. But anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Take care.